Hey, it's Base from BaseFit Official and welcome to today's episode of the BaseFit Opinion. Today we're talking about compounds versus isolations. These are different names, different categories, different groups for different kinds of exercises. You have compound lifts and you have isolation lifts. I've written up some examples. So compound lifts can be thought of as big movements, the bigger type movements. They are also often multi-joint, so they use multiple different joints at the same time within one movement. Examples I've written are squat, deadlift, and the cable push. Isolation exercises, you can think of these as the small exercises, the smaller exercises. They are quite often, they're typically single joint exercises, but they can be just a few joints. For example, with a bicep curl, if you intentionally lift it up like this, that involves your shoulder and your elbow, so it's not technically single joint exercise, but generally speaking, they are single to less joint exercises. For examples, we have the bicep curl, the calf raise, and the standard crunch. Compounds versus isolation. What is my opinion? I think both are incredibly important. I think the majority of your training should be in compounds, if not all of it, and very little to no time should be spent on isolation exercises. There are cases and situations where isolation exercises are needed and are important. For the general population I'm talking about. If you're a professional bodybuilder or you want to become a professional bodybuilder and you've spent years working on your compounds, then you can start to use isolation exercises the same way Mr. Schwarzenegger did, Arnold, Jay Cutler, all of those monsters of men. Obviously, they used isolation exercises and they helped get those types of physiques. But for the general population, you don't want that because it's not physically healthy. So stay away from isolation exercises such as the bicep curl, etc. Focus more on compound lifts. Now, isolation exercises, when can you use them? There's a thing, I think it's called motor sensory amnesia. Motor sensory amnesia. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's basically when your body, your brain, forgets how to activate a muscle. That's basically what happens. You need to learn again, your brain needs to use those those neurons that fire that muscle. It needs to use it again and get used to using the muscle. In that situation, a lot of people have motor sensory amnesia in their transverse abdominis, in their TVA. In that situation, you want to isolate the TVA or isolate the forgotten muscle so that your brain reworks those pathways and you can begin to use the muscle again. Then, once you have adequate function of the muscle in isolation, you need to move it, integrate it into compound lifts, into functional movements. Otherwise, you might be good at doing a bicep curl, but as soon as you go to do a pull-up, you can't because everything's out of whack. That type of thing. Another reason why you want to stay away from isolation exercises, because a lot of people, when you isolate a muscle, the body isn't supposed to work in isolation. It's supposed to work as one whole kind of function, one whole body, one whole movement. So when you focus on one muscle, you build the strength of this muscle, neglecting the strength of every muscle that it would usually work with. So for example, the bicep curl, which I've used previously, in terms of the pull-up, in the pull-up, the bicep works with the forearm, it works with the shoulder musculature, it works with the back, it works with the back musculature, the abdominal musculature, even the legs. But when you do a bicep curl, it's just the biceps, maybe a bit of forearms, maybe a bit of unwanted shoulder if you have bad form. It strengthens the bicep, neglecting the rest of the muscles, and even if you do strengthen the other muscles on other days or whatever, you're strengthening them in isolation of each other. They're not working together. You're not strengthening that nervous kind of pathways that allow you to use your muscles synergistically at the same time to create the movement that you want without getting injured. And that's what's important. You don't want to get injured because of it. So if some people work the hamstrings in isolation on a machine, that's dangerous because the hamstrings never work in isolation in the real world. They work with the entire posterior chain, your glutes, your back, everything on the backside of your body usually works together, including your hamstrings. So if you want to work your hamstrings, you need to do it with the use of other muscles as well. Otherwise, you're not going to have any functional carryover into sport or into life. And that's extremely important. That's why you need to focus on compound lifts. Isolate to make your body remember the muscle, and then you need to integrate it into compound lifts so that you can perform the lift without the high risk of injury. Hope you've enjoyed today's video. I think I've covered most things. I went on a little bits of tangents here and there, but all's good. Leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, do what you want. Tune in next time, don't tune in next time. Talk highly, talk craply of me, that's okay. I just hope you train hard.